Hello everyone, my name is Super, Destiny Enthusiast. This is a solo flawless guide for the Master Mode of Grasp of Avarice for the Hunter class. Warlocks and Titans, your guides will be in the description down below. Now, this is a Master Guide, so I'll not be going over any of the mechanics as I assume everyone watching this will already know them. If you do not, my guide for this dungeon is down below. That said, let's get into this. Hunters, for this dungeon I'm going to recommend either Void subclass or Stasis subclass. I personally prefer Stasis throughout the dungeon as I find it better equipped to handle it. So I'll be going into more detail on it and the build in a moment. For those of you that prefer Void subclass, I would recommend you use Bottom Tree Tether or Top Tree Tether with either 6 Coyote, Omnioculus, or Gravitational Forfeit. They are all great options. Just slap on one of those throughout the dungeon and you should be fine. Now, for Stasis, let's break it down. For Fragments, you're going to want to equip Whisper of Shards, Whisper of Rhyme, Whisper of Hedrons, Whisper of Conduction, and Whisper of Chains. For Aspects, you're going to want to have Touch of Winter and Grim Harvest. These aspects and fragments are designed to provide you with either health or an overshield whenever you pick up a stasis shard while also regenerating your abilities quicker. They all work together as a build. You're going to also want to have Assassin's Cowl equipped on you as well. This will also give you invisibility and healing whenever you get a melee ability kill with your shurikens or you get a finisher kill. It makes the dungeon super easy. For power weapons throughout the dungeon, you're only going to need Zephyr with Cold Steel or Lament. Equip Passive Guard with these swords and you will pretty much become a walking tank that heals on kill. For primary weapons, I would recommend an arc bow or an arc auto rifle, something like Shadow Price or Point of the Stake, to help with the anti-barrier parts of the dungeon and the overload captain parts of the dungeon. Mods you will 100% need are Protective Light, Taking Charge, and Shield Break Charge. You can add Thermoclastic Bloom into this as well if you want, however it isn't necessary for success. That will conclude the breakdown. I will be skipping the Navigate the Facility encounter as everyone should know how to do it, so I will be moving on to the Ogre Boss encounter. Now, for the Ogre Boss encounter, you're going to want to have the Lament and Passive Guard. You can use Sleeper and Particle, however I find you're going to have a much harder DPS phase if you use Sleeper rather than Lament, at least for the Hunter class. If you have Loosened Blade, make sure you equip that as well. Now, a reminder that there will be Anti-Barrier Knights and Arc Shielded Knights throughout this encounter whenever you enter one of the rooms to pick up the Burden Engrams. Make sure you have a backup anti-barrier weapon that is arc, like Shadow Price, in case you run into that situation. Just abuse your Assassin's Cowl and you should be fine. Never go into the rooms without your super or melee abilities. I would just sit and wait until you get them back just to be safe. I also recommend either Duskfield Grenades or Glacier Grenades to help you here with ad control and for the DPS phase. Now, for the DPS phase, what I do is I throw my super and my grenade onto or beside the boss and then go and use Lament to do damage. That way, I have passive guard resistance and resistance from my crystals. I also have the Lament that will heal me whenever I do damage to the boss. I also have Protective Light available, so if I get weak, I will have 6 times resistance, because Protective Light and Stasis Crystals stack along with Passive Guard, allowing you to basically just become a tank. Repeat this DPS phase until the boss is dead. I will show a full damage phase that I did on my Hunter. If you wish to skip this, then the timestamp will be in the top right for the Mines encounter. Alrighty, for the Mines encounter, you're going to want to have Arc Resistance, Risk Runner, and the Always On Time Sparrow from Black Armory. If you don't have the Always On Time Sparrow, that's okay, just use a Sparrow with a Fast Summoning perk. You can also use any sword with Egger's Edge perk. Just be careful you don't smack yourself into anything. Now, I will let my full run play out. If you wish to skip this and go to the Fallen Shield encounter, then the timestamp is in the top right corner on your screen. Alrighty, for the Fallen Shield encounter, I'm going to recommend you use Zephyr with the Cold Steel perk, and if you have Unrelenting on it as well, that's even better. I'm also going to recommend Risk Runner or Wither Horde here, or any Blinding GL launcher here, as there are lots of ads. For mods, I'm going to recommend Disruption Blade for the Overload Captains, and Passive Guard for the Resistance. Now, if you don't want to use Risk Runner, then I would recommend Overload Bow here as well, as it is always good to have a backup plan in case you run out of sword ammo. Assassin's Cowl is great here as well, along with Thermoclastic Bloom. They work good together here. That will be all my recommendations for the Fallen Shield encounter, as I will be moving on to the final boss room. Now, for the final boss room, there are going to be anti-barrier servitors around the map, so I recommend using Lament along with Loosen Blade and Passive Guard. I also recommend any auto rifle with anti-barrier rounds and any grenade launcher with blinding grenades. Now, I recommend you kill the Shank and Vandal mini-bosses first after killing the champions before going to grab any engrams or doing DPS to the boss. I recommend you use the Scorch Cannons to kill them, that way you don't have to waste any ammo. Just to note, blinding grenades do work on them, so if you need to move somewhere, you can blind the Shank or the Vandal boss. Now, when depositing the burden engrams, I recommend you throw your Glacier Grenade to use as a resistance wall, or to use Assassin's Cowl to go invisible, and for DPS, I recommend you use your Super, and then just use Lament to keep yourself alive and to do DPS to the boss. Just repeat this process until the boss is dead. With that will conclude the Hunter Master Grasp of Avarice guide. I hope some of you find this guide useful and helpful. Thank you all for watching.